Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the February 10th meeting of the Park and Recreation Commission. Our first item is a recognition.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Mr. Cass,
Sure.
you want to come on up?
Do you have anything to say? Nothing? I gave you some notes.
Yeah, well, I wanted you to do it. We did
Yeah.
this lovely view on the side. Look at that.
Ah, look how handsome this guy is. It's a taxi with a driver down the street with the doors open right there. Kevin, Bill's very disappointed you didn't come in person, I'm just saying.
I'm under the weather here.
We started acknowledging certain volunteers and people that have been helping us out in our department. We did some of the adult sports, but when I was granted a new position in a new town, I want to make sure that we did this for Bill. But so Bill Branco, if you don't know him, Bill is I can do a lot of things well here in my position that I had as a program coordinator and supervisor eventually. The one thing that I was horrible at was scheduling and making sure the schedule is always right. So Bill, for 7 years, has been my right-hand man with schedules. I'd send him a schedule and he'd have it done in like 5 minutes. And I don't know what he does at work during the day, but Raytheon's paying him to make schedules. It's on public meetings. No, but anyway, no, honestly, like, in fact, we did a cornhole tournament for Ivan's fundraising over at the Tiki, and we had a round robin going. Spads remembers, and we're trying to do the standings real quick, and I go into full panic mode because everybody's standing there looking at me, and Bill had to calm me down, pump the brakes. 2 seconds, he had the whole thing figured out, the seating, who was playing what, where, when, and how. So, Bill's also a good friend of mine. I love Bill. I love to give him a hard time, especially as you can see. But Littleton Parks and Recreation could not do the things that they do because, there's other departments that are paying software companies, to be honest with you, to take care of things like schedule and standings. And Bill's our guy. So he's not only does he save us a lot of money, I know he likes it, I think. But honestly, integral to my success here in Littleton, and I just want to acknowledge him and say thank you to Bill. We have a plaque, we have a Yeti for you, Littleton Park and Rec Yeti that we give our staff. You're like one of our staff. So William H. Baru Branco. What's going here? And I'm going all team except for Ricky's here. You want to get one with all the park commissioners too?
Yeah.
Come on up. Maybe Spaz, will you take it so I'll let you in it? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Saul,
Thank you.
congratulations. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Bill.
Norm, you don't know. So, here you go.
You're so tall.
Yeah.
I believe that feels good. I'm like walking by that.
I'll put our hands on it. Like you spell speech, Joe.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Happy to help.
Thank you. I like the new sheet.
Thank you, yes.
Oh, you're cheap.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Jim, yes. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you, buddy. Yes, where you go?
Listen, I'll check. You want me to run tomorrow? I'm gonna be there for help. Those guys don't have to be there.
All right, moving on to
Run.
commissioner updates. Peter?
No.
Norm? Nothing.
I've pulled paperwork to run again for commissioner, so I'm in the process of collecting signatures to get on the ballot.
All right.
So if you are a licensed registered voter in Littleton and you want to see my name on the ballot, please sign my paperwork.
Good. Kevin, is Kevin still there?
I'm here. That's my update.
That's it? All right. Very good. Don't think I have anything either, so everything is on the agenda.
Sorry, I gotta.
Minutes from previous meetings? And 14th, any comments, questions, corrections? And or a motion?
Motion to accept, the minutes for the January meeting.
I'll second that.
Next we do roll call. Kevin?
Yep.
Norm?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right. Request for use of Fay Park.
Eric's on.
Yeah.
Oh, he is Eric. Hello.
So Eric can't hear us proceed.
Yeah,
So you tell him.
sorry.
You need me to promote him.
Oh, yes, please. Yes.
I mean, I should say he can see. He can hear. Should you do this? Eric, you should have a little vest on your screen.
I always forget that you guys switch over to the webinar format. Eric, you're on. I think you're muted.
Hello.
Hi,
I
how are you?
am well, thank you.
Great. So I'll let you go ahead and speak to the request for Fay Park.
Yeah, I'm attending this evening on behalf of Littleton Road Race. And again, thank you all for allowing the time. Hoping that we can get our target event date for this year's 16th annual Littleton Road Race of Sunday, September 21st, approved for use at the Fay Park venue that we've used most often in the past.
And this is also to waive the fee for use.
Oh, yes. Yep. Sorry.
Eric, do you know what the time frame is, or this is just an all-day thing?
Well, we usually begin setup for the event on the morning of the event. So yeah, it would basically be an all day thing. We're usually, done and cleaned up by about 5 in the evening.
No changes from previous years.
Correct. Same sort of run of show and anticipated needs in terms of, where the sound system would be, the gazebo would be, largely used as like a bag check, same sort of setup that we've had, with the porta potties around the periphery and that sort of thing.
Last year, I think, was it Dirigible that was there? Is there still a beer vendor possibly there?
Still possible, not yet confirmed, but I know they did express interest, and I know Jasmine on our team would, follow the same sort of request process and permitting process, I believe.
I didn't put that on there, Eric, but that's up to the park commissioners if they want to approve that tonight, or that might be something you have to come back to.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to cover it all tonight if
Yeah.
it's okay with everybody. I think she's with it past, so.
We do something like a contingent with
Other permits and approvals. Yeah.
Well, they have to ask for permission from the park commission first before they can go to the select.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
I will make the motion for the Littleton Road Race at Fay Park on Sunday, September 21st, all day. We'll also make the motion to allow liquor on premises
And waive it.
And,
and waive the fee.
I'll second that.
all right, moved and seconded. Kevin,
Yep.
Norm,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well.
Thank
Okay,
you all
Eric,
very
you're all
much.
set, my friends.
Very much appreciated. Thank you all.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Right. So Clean Lakes, I have up here, on the screen, this,
It's up there at the top. I don't know, we need to switch.
Judy, do you know how to switch it so the slides bigger?
There we go.
There we go. All right. So, if you guys are here tonight, the Park Commission wanted you guys to present your idea of, what you were asking Parks and Recreation for, and just having a conversation on, what that looks like.
Thank you. John Folsom, Chairman of CLC. This is new for us. This is weird, coming and asking for money. Got a few bumps in the road here, but as you're well aware, as you were in attendance back in August for the stakeholders meeting, we are seeking a diverse group of people who are interested in supporting the lakes and their health. The lakes are aging, and of course, we're talking about Long Lake, where your summer activities are based at the town beach. And we were hoping that we could find some way to begin to contribute, have you contribute to some of the expenses at Long Lake, maybe even expand over the years to take all campers and some of your other activities to other lakes, field trip or what have you. The water facilities that we have here in Littleton, rival Acton, Foxborough, they're suffering. So a few lakes, of course, Maniwaki shares shoreline with Westford as well as Littleton. But we were hoping and wondering how it is we could get this started. Our target for this year is $10,000 for our stabilization fund. But again, I don't know what we need to do to request that or ask that of you, or how you want to put that together. Down the line, you see the numbers increasing. That's our optimistic scenario. If we could continue to reap the benefits of Park and Rec being at the town beach and actually having an impact, positive impact on the lake, we would be very grateful. The $10,000 we need in the sustainability or the stabilization fund to take care of expenses that we have that aren't targeted through the Community Preservation Committee at this point. We have just received funds, we just got a notification that we will be getting funds through the select board this year for the first time. $25,000, $15,000 of that is going to that same stabilization fund. But we'd like to grow that so that we can take on larger projects. Past 3 years, we've been more concerned with immediate messes, invasive plants for the most part, floating islands at Long Lake. You might remember the muck islands that were along Lake Shore Drive, opposite side from the town beach. Those were removed last year, but again, came up out of nowhere. Actually came from the bottom of the lake, rose and floated in the lily pads. And as our lakes, as I said before, are aging, we don't know what the next exciting development's going to be, but we need funds to address those things. And we're grateful that you may be able to provide something to offset some of those expenses. Our anticipated annual budget this year is over $300,000. So again, any contribution, the $10,000, or we were looking at, I guess, $7,000 for work, around the swimming area. Not sure we can do that this year because we haven't got the proper permits in place, but we're working on that, as our first step. I think, Saul, I wrote you, pretty extensive email, probably bored you silly. It's a long-winded process, but I think it's something we have to go through, and this is the year we targeted to do that. So I think, in the future, the dredging permit we're asking for, and we really didn't anticipate dredging, but that does bring up situations like actually removing some of the excess sand, that has accumulated for years, at the beach. You may actually want to, I know you replenish the sand from time to time, but the old stuff doesn't go away. It just fills in, and we might be able with this new dredging permit to actually remove some of the old excess. Might even consider a benthic barrier at some point in time.
How would that, well, that's probably a discussion for a different day, but in terms of, there's.
Well, we start.
There's
baby
sand,
steps right now.
there's sand for a little ways and then it gets mucky and how do you get
Sure.
this out?
Sure. Well, again, I'd say we could entertain, the notion of a benthic barrier down the line, to really kind of have a protected area at the beach that is separate from, and impervious to the rest of the lake bottom. So, something we weigh out. Also here annually of the grass issues and stuff for the Appleman Triathlon, and people get kind of grossed out. We might be able to do some sort of herbicide treatment or something prior to that event, and really help things there. Really, this is just us coming out, and I think the community looks at us as two committees that ought to be working in conjunction with one another. We're more than happy to pursue that.
And I think I heard at the select board meeting that you were pursuing having an expert come in and evaluate.
We'd like to do that with each of our lakes.
Yeah.
We had that done 25 years ago at Spectacle Pond, and I think it's time to redo it because they were saying, of course, herbicides at the time. With all the buzz, but of course we can't use herbicides at Spec Pond any longer because of the proximity of the aquifer that it sits above, and the worry about PFAS. So again, we're on eco harvesting at this point as our hopeful solution. We're learning very rapidly that it's a timing issue, and if it's not done properly and sufficiently, then it's ineffective or less effective than it certainly should be. So again, we're trying to sharpen up on that and get all the proper permits in place. We weren't in the past couple of years able to remove enough soon enough to really make the kind of impact we'd like to make, and hopefully get on top of the invasives so we can pursue other issues that relate to the lakes. Long Lake, for example, we need to have
We need to set feedback.
We need to have the dam examined and the lake leveler. It's Beaver Dam, of course, so if it's breached, we can't do much to repair it. Just plant more beavers. Ongoing worry. We don't want the water too deep, and we don't want things neglected for too long over there. So again, more expenses, but the stabilization fund we could use for any number of those things as need arose. And I think that gives us some flexibility that the more dedicated funds we're getting now from CDC and stars, see kind of restrictions.
So what are your plans for 2026? If you got this money, how would you be spending it? What's the budget going towards?
We would like the $10,000 to just be there for us. We're accustomed to having come from the cell tower fund situation where we had a steady stream of money annually, some $80,000, and that was accumulating for larger projects like the restoration of Mill Pond. And so there are larger projects that we need to consider. That money would really be targeted for that. We're not looking to spend it down annually if we can avoid that. If things come up, if there's if there's some sort of emergency, we'd also like it to be there for that too. But our funding, we would like to have grow. We had about $500,000 saved for Mill Pond expenses for the dredging operation there. The state shut the whole thing down, so we weren't able to proceed. But now we're considering removing the dam there. That's what the state would like to see. So again, more expenses there. If this money is targeted for Long Lake, it takes the pressure off of us trying to get funding elsewhere. So it's just we're trying to get numerous sources and as much flexibility as we can build in.
So how do you strategize which body of water comes first in your order of what you're tackling?
We examine that on a case-by-case basis. I think Spec Pond and Lake Manawanaki have taken the foreground for the past couple of years because of the invasives that have inundated there. It's everyone who has lived around the lake or participated in either pond says they've never seen it this bad. And we have residents there who've been in the area for 30, 40 years. And we don't even really know the cause except for eutrophication, age of the lake, things deteriorating. But we'd really like to get on top of that. So looking forward, right now we're feeling very fortunate about Long Lake. We had very little invasive issues last year, just the floating islands. So, but again, it varies from year to year. We won't know until spring exactly how things are going to come up.
So if I can ask, what did you do on Matawanaki? I know there was dredging happening along the shoreline. Was that Clean Lakes or was
A
that?
couple of years ago, yes, we helped on that. They have an outfall that goes through the old mill, and they're with their beach from the Westford Town Beach. There's been sort of a silting over towards that entrance or the exit of the lake actually, and the sand that had accumulated there, sort of sandbar, was preventing the drawdown. Matawanaki, they like to have a drawdown annually so that they can kill off the weeds and stuff that way. Dave, you want to say something? Dave lives on Matawanaki, our reporting center.
Yeah, I did all the permitting for that work and we did the bidding with Westford. It was did some removal of the stream bottom. It was funded by Clean Lakes Committee and Westford Health Lakes and Ponds Collaborative with the intention of improving the effectiveness of the drawdowns, which have always been used on Lake Matawanaki to control the plants. In the last couple of years, with the warm winters we've had, the drawdowns need extended frozen periods of time. We haven't had that. This year we might do better, but to your question about that, that was done in 2021, 22. Yeah.
Just a couple of things. One of the things that I want to mention is that our operating funds got cut this year. So in order for us to entertain adding money, it would be to our program budget, to our program costs to do something like that. I'll also say the escalating budget could be problematic. I mean, 10,000 is
Best case scenario.
Yeah, 10,000 is certainly something that we'd have to look into, but certainly the escalating cost would then put more and more pressure on our budget.
Certainly.
The other thing I would like to say is because we mutually want to see the livelihood of Long Lake, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So want to see how we can do that together. I would also say that if we were to contribute in our budget, we'd like to participate in decision-making, on how that money gets spent, rather than just cutting a check every year. We certainly think that, we want to weigh in on, what the issues are, certainly with Long Lake.
I don't think that's a big ask.
I wanted to clarify, so the 10,000 that's being requested, that is just, it's arbitrary to go into a stabilization fund?
It's a starting point. It's
But it's
really
an
for a
arbitrary
stabilization
amount, we
fund.
don't have specific.
I don't have anything targeted on that because, of course, we don't have it. You know, and we didn't know if it was going to come to pass this year. And so, you know, this is a beginning, sort of like the $25,000 we just got from the town. We have a few things earmarked for it that we will spend. The lake leveler and the dam inspection is one of them. And then work at Doleful Pond will be another for the select board. But the stabilization fund, we don't have anything specific for that. We just like to establish that. So this $10,000 is that. And again, we're trying to broaden our base of income.
I get that. So the 10,000 that you're asking for, if it's going into a stabilization fund, then you can use those funds for anything. How do you guarantee, or how will you parcel that out to go to Long Lake specifically?
If that's earmarked for Long Lake specifically, we'll keep it that way. It may be in a pool that's accumulating interest and what have you. That's great, but we won't spend that on any other lake. And we go through you before we spend it at all.
And if I heard the other day, I think Steve said that if it's in a stabilization fund, it actually has to go to town meeting to be released.
That's been said. And I was told at the select board that it may take a couple of months to go through the select board for approval.
It may be that you want a different fund than a stabilization fund. That may be.
I don't think so. It's the only stabilization fund we have.
Anyway,
Can I speak?
sure.
Thank you. So I'm not a member of Clean Lakes, but I've attended meetings for about 2 years. I've been active. I've sent some of you, I hope the email that I sent to you folks prior to the minutes has been circulated with all the commissioners. So I'm glad to see that it has. Okay, so a few things of clarification. One, with regard to stabilization, there may be a legitimate reason to have a stabilization fund because some of the dollars you just heard John say, there's a $300K budget for the next year. So they're not going to get, Clean Lakes is not going to get $300K overnight. It's going to take years of accumulation. You made reference to the cell tower and once upon a time having $500K. So let's just park stabilization off to the side. You're correct. Stephen Nudie and John had an exchange. I'm not certain that they've really understood the impact of that. I've clarified with Ryan Ferrara. Yes, in fact, if the money goes into a stabilization fund, then it goes in there with the town vote from that 25K. If a cent of that 25K or any money coming out of the stabilization fund is to be spent, it has to be in separate warrant and separate article with a vote that says you're allowed to spend it. So that, quite frankly, that exchange that I don't think has been processed and understood, and there's a Clean Lakes Committee meeting tomorrow night, which I think you should all consider yourself welcome to. I go to all of them myself, is that this group, you folks specifically, should be creating a revolving fund, much like you're very familiar with, because that's most of your $1.4 million, $1.5 million, $1.8 million
Well,
operation.
that's not what we have, but
So
do have a revolving
it's your
fund.
threshold.
correct.
Okay, thank you. It's your threshold for spending. So as John's speaking with regard to Doleful Pond or Lake Metawanaki or Spec Pond, all of your park and rec operations, I obtained town council for you that connected town council's opinion. You are authorized to charge surcharges with regard to your fees if they are connected with activity in Long Lake. So your presentation, Alicia, on, did you do Super Saturday? Or were
I
you
did
there?
not. It was
You were
on
there
Tuesday
before
night.
the
Yeah.
week, okay, so you were, the joint meeting of FinCom and Select Board in which you presented. I attended that event, or I watched that event afterwards, took notes. You presented what each revenues of $125,000. You then identified Camp T revenues of $555,000. Hold on. So not all of your Camp T, you have some Friday activity, but Camp T, you spend in your day at Camp T, you spend 1 hour in junior camp and 1 hour in senior camp within Camp T every day other than, or at least that's how you present it on your website. You're spending it in Long Lake swimming for 1 hour a day, 4 out of the 5 days a week for the duration of your programs. I made that argument to you folks that was sent several days ago with regard to, I think you should be thinking in terms of a surcharge associated with not just beach revenues that operates for your presentation at a deficit, but Camp T that has an excess of a $200K profit, basically bankrolls the rest of your programs. If you were to take, as I propose, a $5,000 charge with regard to your 125K beach revenue, and start off with a 1% on Camp T revenues in your first year, you get your 5 and your 5, and you'd have your 10K right there. If you were to grow each successive year of Camp T by 1% more, in other words, a phased in thing, you would be at your 5-year thing of $30,000. I know that Tim Mikulski during your December meeting, he kind of got on a roll, and he got on a roll with some incorrect information that I tried to correct in my remarks here. $32,000 and change was spent last year. Tim, I'm seeing the question on your face, Alicia. Tim said they never spent, Clean Lakes has never spent $30,000 on Long Lake. I'll send you the invoice. I have the.
When did he say that? I don't
Your
remember
December,
saying that.
was it December 18th meeting? You can watch it.
I
I've
don't.
watched it several times.
Sure.
So the point that I'm trying to make here is that since the stakeholder meeting that I know Alicia attended in August, the point's been made that our lakes are in trouble. They no longer have their funding source. They need diversified revenues. It's been known since August that there's a need for different new revenue sources. I've attempted to work with Clean Lakes and outside of Clean Lakes with regard to imparting that knowledge of it takes money to clean up the lakes. Some of the problems that he was talking about, the lack of drawdowns, it really has hurt the lakes. We need solutions. We can't, it's confusing and it's difficult because we're just starting on a process that doesn't exist yet. So we have to share information with each other, much like Peter, you were saying, like to have a role and understand that's critical, no question about it. But we're not there yet. It's going to take a number of steps in order to get there. I think maybe 5 years, 2 years, hopefully we'll be farther along than we are. But at this moment in time, we're not there. So I fear that there could be some confusion when we start to talk about all things Clean Lakes, because Clean Lakes has responsibility for all of Littleton Lakes. You and Park and Rec, by town council's, determination of conceptualizing a surcharge with regard to your program revenues, all of your stuff has to be contained with regard to Long Lake. And not a dime from you folks can be spent on a different lake unless you determine you're going to spend it, with a stabilization that you'd be subsidizing, which I don't think you would, but you'd be subsidizing. Yes, we want to invest X dollars to fix Spec Pond or X dollars to fix Lake Manawanaki. I think your focus probably more appropriate because, as John said, if you folks, and we get some money from you folks with regard to Long Lake, they'll take the pressure off so that Clean Lakes can look to CPC, the stabilization fund contribution from the general fund, Talon Road, or from the water department that primarily focuses on Spec Pond. We can get those other sources to deal with those lakes, but your lake of dominant use with beach basins, Camp T, sailing programs, fishing programs, it's Long Lake. So start with something simple. John and company and you folks, to Peter's point, need to develop what might you do. And months ago, I sent at least Saul, an email with regard to maybe you want to do it with regard to the Appleman, to fix those things up. Fix those things up. Saul, you stated, I think correctly, Long Lake's a challenging experience. Lots of kids go in there and say, I don't want to go in there. It's yucky. There's ways to improve the experience And some of it needs to be done with what was done this past year of muck island removal so that kayaking, canoeing, swimming, all things can be enjoyed. But $10,000, not gonna do that much, quite frankly. So it could be that it's going to take your consistent contributions in order to have enough money to even, should the management plan be done for Long Lake, come to the conclusion of, okay, we buy in, you folks as well as Clean Lakes, and agree, this makes sense. Let's go about doing this. Let's plan for it. But you can't probably, to Peter, some of your points, if all of a sudden you come up with a great idea and agree on we need to do something that's going to have a price tag, 1 week this year cost $32,000 and change. That was just 1 week's effort. So you could come up with a future year after the lake management plan and say, we need 50, or we need 100. So you have to make dollar increments, hence start off at a 10K conceptually. Is it going to hurt with regard to increasing your fees? I'm sure it is. Nobody likes to see, and I know how precious you are with regard, I've heard the remarks previously, how precious you try to keep your dollars with regard to how much you're charging for your fees. But this is a new reality with regard to the lakes are deteriorating and there's no money. So thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you.
Saul?
Yeah.
So I heard somebody saying, I apologize for not being there, I'm a little bit under the weather, that you were trying to broaden your base. Where else have you tried to gain some money for the stabilization fund?
The stabilization fund has been started by the town itself. Select board just started giving us money for fiscal year 2026. We've also had contributions from Manawanaki, from Friends of Forge Pond, and also the Westford. Yeah, they're the comparable group, their CLC group over in Westford. So we continue to expand our base.
CPC.
And
And
CPC.
CPC has been key in providing funds for the past couple of years.
And by funds, that's in this year headed towards the town vote, $80,000 for Lake Manawanaki and $30,000 for a boat ramp on Spec Pond. That's just the current year. Sorry, Saul, you remember you could provided those definitions. Sorry.
Does that come out of the recreation bucket or is that?
No, that's open space.
Open space.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Is the boat ramp open space or is it park and rec?
Not sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, the boat ramp itself is
Right.
is for recreation.
Yeah.
On Spec Pond.
The existing ramp is challenging.
Entertaining.
There. Okay. So I think we have a couple avenues we could go down. With fiscal year 26 in mind, we're fairly wide open in terms of, we're going to be collecting revenue essentially starting in early calendar 26.
Yeah, so fiscal years run July through June 30th. So July
Right.
1st through June. So fiscal year 26 would start on July 1st.
Yeah.
Upcoming.
So I guess maybe at this point, we would just focus on the discussion and sort of conceptually, and then we have some time to work out details. Any other comments or thoughts from the commissioners?
I mean,
Well, as I said, I certainly want to, maybe clean Long Lake. I swam there.
Yeah, I think a management or an evaluation and plan is really critical there.
We'd like to work towards that, but that's probably $40,000 to start with.
Okay.
And so this is where things come into perspective.
Because I think, one of the things, it seems like we've tried sort of, whatever the flavor of the year is to make things better, whether it's the eco harvesting or herbicides or, and this does not necessarily seem like there's been a real planned approach.
I wouldn't contest that.
Okay.
We do an awful lot of discussion about this, and it's not arbitrary. We've made a conscious choice to move aside from herbicides because really it just leaves debris in the water.
Right.
And the eco harvesting seems to be the most effective for actually removing mass. There's no other way of cutting or harvesting or anything else that we've seen that comes close. As I mentioned, timing becomes a big issue and quantity becomes a big issue. And I think under the circumstances, we were planning since last fall this permit for dredging, and come to discover that we can't even submit the application until spring, so we can provide samples of currently growing invasives. So we won't see the permit, if we see the permit next year, until October.
And we don't think there's a significant invasive problem in Long Lake though, right?
There was not last year.
Okay.
And I'm grateful for that. But if we do need to do something this year, our only avenue will be herbicides.
Yeah.
We know herbicides are effective. We just don't think over a long period of time that they're beneficial.
And are there other, besides those two processes, are there other things in terms of water clarity and
Radical things you can do. You can dye the water darker. So less sunlight gets to the
Okay.
plants.
interesting?
But
There's
honestly,
all kinds of kooky things going on out there.
Tim Pearson's about to become the agent as Amy retires, and Tim called me several days ago. I know John's been informed. I know they're gonna discuss it at tomorrow's meeting, but Tim reached out to DCR Lake and Ponds Division. I think it was either Peter or Kevin. Somebody spoke at your December meeting asking the question, does Clean Lakes use DCR? Well, Tim reached out and there's discussion underway now, which I think would be great if one or more of you could participate in what I think will be finalized tomorrow with regard to a Zoom presentation from DCR Lakes and Ponds, who are going to bring in their experience of, as I understand it from Tim, several years of experience with regard to herbicide and treating and kind of divining, if you will, what are the possibilities of that should be considered. So I just throw that out as yet another, it's not just diversification of revenue, it's also reaching out to, known professionals with regard to experience that might bring education to our, Littleton efforts with regard to cleaning up our lakes.
Are they presenting tomorrow?
They are not. This is proposed to be a March meeting in which I immediately threw it back at Tim, who I applaud for doing it and reaching out to them, but said, it seems to me like it's a stakeholder round two, in which we could get Board of Health theoretically. Matt Silverman from the Water Department has already expressed interest in attending. Clean Lakes, Park and Rec. We could get a lot of good people together with regard to understanding the challenge, because that's what you are all interested in.
And I mean, we do have other professionals that we work with that have given us similar advice, right? And the lake management plans that we are interested in developing for each lake would look at each lake specifically and bring that same kind of professional assessment and guidance to each lake as to, here's what your situation is, here are your options, here's what we think would be the right way to proceed.
Which would be good, because for everything humans try to fix, we often, not on purpose, but we often bring about some other maybe unfortunate events.
Very much on purpose. The highway department does a super efficient job of taking all of the problems that they have on the roads and shooting them into the lakes.
So
we have 8 or 10 outfalls immediately around Lakeshore Drive that should be interrupted. And, of course, we should keep in mind as well, 20 years ago, the first Long Lake restoration project that we did as one of our first major projects for the CLC addressed all of those issues and began to correct things with the frog pond, with the new boat launch, with the weir system beside the boat launch, with Filterra units at the park or at the parking lot at the town beach, as well as individual homeowners receiving strategically located rain gardens, and all of this sort of analysis of exactly how the storm drain system worked and where the outfalls came from where.
But that originally was done in like 1999, right?
That's
Okay,
right.
but keep in mind on Super Saturday, Steve Yonley, DPW director, updated again. Select board already authorized several months ago, $93,000 and change engineering contract with Ty and Bond. The surveyors were out there just last week already. That surveying work is supposed to be done this winter, correct, for Frog Pond.
Great.
With regard to then doing the dredging, this is from DPW Yonley's remarks on Super Saturday to the FinCom Select Board with a plan of getting that work done.
Right.
And then just FYI, with regard to Frog Pond, Andrew Samarco, with regard to Conscom, he's a member there, he's heading to CPC with two plans, replace the cobblestone pathway that is a dangerous situation right now, as well as a second plan with regard to remove invasives. The invasive plan alone around Frog Pond is estimated to cost $30,000 for a multi-year effort. So the dollars are almost unbelievable. But just want to share that effort that John and you are remembering happening back in 2002, 2003. This is going to be a substantial re-engagement, if you will, with regard to getting it back to working. It shouldn't have never been let this go, but it did. Now at least it's being addressed.
Yeah, because probably about 3 or 4 years ago, the previous DPW director, Chris Stoddard, had completely redone the swale that's there right next to the boat ramp. And we spent money ourselves to essentially clean out all of those tracks, if you will, that have the stormwater go through at Long Lake. So we planted flowers, whatever, the sedums, all that stuff to be able to filter all of that out. So that's what we could do at that time.
All right. I do want to move this along because we have a number of other things to make up. I'm not sure how we want to proceed here in terms of
So I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Like, what are we vote? So are we looking to vote on this stabilization fund right now?
no, I don't think we're
Okay.
There you go.
we're at a point of committing to that. I think it's more a discussion of which direction do we want to move, and then we can work with the staff to come up with how we might fund it, and then bring that to a meeting in the future.
I think how we might fund it is that's the huge question.
Right.
That we need to figure out. Obviously, we all want clean lakes.
Right.
I don't think that's a question. I think it's just getting the money.
I think just to be, I'm kind of a blunt person, so I apologize for that, but like, we can't just write a check for 10,000. We can't do that.
Is that for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, as it's presented, that's kind of how it comes across.
So sorry.
So,
We're the ones who are doing the asking.
I gotta be honest.
You're the
I
ones who are
think
doing
you are
the
being
giving.
asked for
And I know it always sounds
I'm
bad on the
sorry.
giving side.
I would disagree. I think you are being asked for that. The critical is a commitment for a revolving fund to embrace surcharges on your programs you've had since mid-October. The Awareness Town Council permits you to do that. And if you don't commit either tonight in this meeting, or if you don't meet in time before the select board on March 10th, is going to consider articles and warrants, then you've basically forgotten this year. You've wasted a year as far as I'm concerned. You've known about since August with regard to the stakeholder meeting. In mid-October, you informed you of the ability by town council to consider surcharges on your programs. I've given you a pathway to create that $10,000 that, quite frankly, I don't think a 1% on Camp T, and maybe you don't do 10, maybe you do 5, but 1% on your Camp T that you're charging $300 and change for a week's work. I don't think that's much, to consider, quite frankly, and I'll also be blunt, and recognize and apologize, but the part that I'm bringing is basically 2 years' work of personal effort with regarding Frog Pond to get dredged again and get this going in 2 weeks, 2 years worth of work with Clean Lakes, and now 6 months with you folks with regard to stakeholders and make your awareness with regard to what you can do. It's no longer going to get done because they don't have the money to do it. So either everybody chips in the pieces that they can, or else, as much as it's goodwill that we want lakes to be clean, it ain't going to happen. It takes dollars. So I apologize also.
Yeah, Rob, I appreciate the input and the feedback, but I'd ask if you could let us discuss now.
Yeah, it takes dollars, but that's one of the biggest hits we get every single year is when we up fees for any of the beach things. Now I'm all for Clean Lakes. I get it. I understand it. Maybe we put this year we put would you like to voluntarily, add to the stabilization fund or something like that? It's one of the biggest hits we always take about the fees that we charge for Camp T, the fees for the lake, the fees for whatever we do. And it's one of the biggest, hits against us. And I just don't think it's as easy as it's being laid out.
Alicia, what is the cost for a week of Camp T this year?
A week of Camp T, I believe this year is $395.
Okay. And there's 6 weeks, right?
7.
7 weeks. Okay. So it's more than just looking, you have to look at families that do it the full summer. Most families that I know that went through this. So $395 if you were just throwing it out. You just have to just think about the money and the impacts if it was 1%. Like
28.
tons. Yeah, it's not that much. But you just have to, think about it from the family's perspective too. $28 is not that much over the course of the whole summer.
Right.
But does that get us where we are? And to Kevin's point, does that cause people saying like, well, you raised fees for the soccer field, you raised fees for this and for that. So,
and we will have to increase fees for programs because we're already set through the end of August. Because we're always like 6 months ahead of time. So the only time that we're going to have to change fees is going to be the fall on, because we lost the funding of the office coordinator. So that's going to end up being around like $60,000 that we have to make that money up out of just program fees.
that money went back to town, basically. Okay.
But you were only getting half.
Oh,
Well, I mean, all right, I'll write letters clarifying corrections.
So with benefits, yes, it would be about 60,000. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so for this season, I do wonder about Kevin's suggestion about, that checkbox.
Voluntary.
Yeah.
I kind of like that as well.
And then, potentially we've got a discussion coming up about the, parking and rentals and all the other
Right.
fees. So we can look at that as well. I mean, I do think that, in the long term, something with Camp T makes sense to me. I know it's not everybody's favorite thing, but the lake is a big part of their activities. I think it makes sense that we look at a piece of that.
When's the last time we raised fees for Camp T?
We do every year.
We do every year, okay. And how many kids are we taking this year? I know that. number
Yeah, so our
fluctuates.
cap is usually around 190. It depends on how many kids are in each grade, if we're able to take on
Right.
more.
Okay,
But in general, it tends to be around 190.
times 7 weeks. So we're talking 1,300 kids in the summer. Or chances to raise money.
1,300 seats,
Yeah.
1,300 slot.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I guess. I think at this point, I'd just like to get as a board, are we? Do we want to move ahead with setting aside money in some fashion or another for fiscal year 26, whether it's a revolving fund or stabilization fund or something else? I think we can.
I guess I'm not there yet. I mean, I like this opportunity, this possibility of maybe it's a voluntary contribution.
Well, I think so, sorry, when I say for fiscal year 26, that would be past July 1st. So talking about the planning for programs that will be in summer of 26. Which I realize is a long way away, but this is how we do our.
Yeah.
This is how we schedule things. So, yeah, I think that, so that's where I just want to, if we're as a group good with that, then we can move forward with looking at what that dollar looks like on beach programs, sailing camp, Camp T, how to split that up, or what the appropriate way to do that is, and then what those totals look like, both for users and for what the fund builds up to.
I mean, to be clear, I think it is an important thing that we do. It's just the, paying 10,000, 15,000, increasing by $5,000 every year. That's just not.
No,
something that
I mean,
we
I-
guarantee.
That's
I think
their proposal. Let's not.
I think
decide
the path that in our brief discussions, the path that makes sense, I think, for our operations is some either dollar or percentage amount of programming. And if programming goes up, the funds go up. If programming goes down, the funds go down. And that's that's the way our
That's how we
operation
operate.
works, right?
Yeah.
So it won't be a fixed amount. It'll be whatever revenue looks like. So I think that from that side, I think that makes sense.
And to your point, it's not just Camp T that uses the lake. That's a good point. It's sailing, the fishing clubs.
Yep.
There are other programs.
Sure.
Yes.
But I think when we look later at the numbers, just on a
That's
number
why I
of,
brought some of them up.
yeah, a number of participants, and Camp T is a giant compared to the others, but they're also not there. You get sailing and fishing that are there for 8 weeks, 8 hours a day, versus Camp T that's there. It probably ends up being about the same if you want to count hours, right? It's 10 times as many kids and less time, but
With this one here, this was the final net loss for fiscal year 24. So the programming brought in 49,426. Boat rentals, just about $5,000, memberships, 42,600. And the day and parking passes, 17,200. Our wages for the beach that summer were 107,825. And the expenses overall were 53,844. So that left us with a net loss of 42. And the beach is one of those areas, it's pretty much the only area we can pretty much guarantee that we're gonna make a loss in. All the other programs, we set up those budgets to make sure that we do have enough to be able to cover, and to be able to cover, you know, things like this, like the beach. So the beach is definitely a challenge to be able to run and, you know, make money off of, to be quite honest. And we're kind of almost at capacity. There's not a whole lot more, you know, we can't add a ton more programming. There's not space to do that. We finally got to a $15 an hour state minimum wage, but there's still talks about like, well, that's gonna change again. So if that's the case, like we just finished 5-year cycle of increasing what the pay rates were for the last 5 years to get to this place where everything is at 15. I think when I started 10 years ago, I think the base rate was like $7.50, right? So that's a huge amount to change over 10 years to get to the 5. And that's step one, grade one, step one. So, you know, some of the other aquatics director and things like that, they're gonna make, you know, anywhere between $22 and $25 an hour. And they are specific roles that they need to have certifications, they need to have experience, they have to be able to, you know, it's not just a simple job to just walk in, like, you know, you need to have to be able to be a lifeguard, to have that experience. So it's a lot, it is a lot.
And can you break down the rental information? Because I know that was a suggestion about.
Yeah, so if you look over next to that yellow box.
Yep.
It has the Long Lake rentals. So we only do the canoe, kayak, and paddle boards. The orange is the 30 minutes and the 60 minutes is the red box, and then in total. So overall, it's probably about 218 hours worth of rentals. Yeah.
And okay, and so that's okay, 5,085. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess just to maybe wrap up the Clean Lakes piece of this. You were sort of still hesitating on.
I guess I'm not exactly clear what we're thinking about potentially voting on.
I don't know that we're voting on anything right now. I think we're just getting, you know, are we committed to
support in some way?
Creating a revenue stream dedicated to lake cleanup, lake support.
In some shape or fashion.
For fiscal year 26, yeah.
Would we keep it in our control so that it wouldn't, so if there's a question at town meeting, if we set it up on our books, does it eliminate that? So if it's a legitimate emergency, like you had said, if there's an emergency and you have to go through town meeting, that doesn't seem efficient. So is there a way to keep it on our books? I don't know. Earmarked Clean Lakes, but on our books?
I'm sure there's something that we can do to set that up, but I think, you know, you guys are looking to do a stabilization fund, which allows them to have funds where they can collect interest on, to be able to increase that.
Right. So but if we collect interest, then it would build
Well, yeah.
We
Where
wouldn't
the-
because,
We don't, right.
yeah, the
so-
revolving doesn't work that way.
And maybe, I mean, maybe that's a. I mean, there's certainly an interest in stabilization, but there's also interest in revolving. Ongoing expense things that are at least easier to get to, so, you know, we can. Continue that discussion and maybe, you know, set aside some part for each or some fashion that way. But I guess with sort of all of these things that to be settled later, I think is right now I just would want to get if we're as a group committed to doing this, and then I think there's details that can be continued to work out. Sort of more of a poll of the board than a motion or a vote, I think.
Yeah, I'm supportive to try to find an avenue to help.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's important. And we will need to discuss how to find it, but I definitely support trying to help fund in some fashion.
Yeah, same. I mean, we're obviously a big stakeholder for this. We definitely need to, you know, help with the stabilization if we can. I'm just not comfortable sort of moving forward with it right now.
Yeah, I think we just need to discuss how we could get there.
Right.
But I think just stating that we are interested in helping hopefully helps allay some stress.
Yeah, I think that's probably all we can do for now, so. Can we close that subject and move on to?
Thank you. So wonderful first step. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming. Thank you for the,
You know, what
the
the first step
feedback.
is gonna be. but-
That, you know, that's right.
What time is your meeting tomorrow for all our listeners? And where?
For all our.
It's over at, room 233 at the town offices.
Room 233 at the town offices at 6 o'clock.
Is that,
You'll see our-
Council on Aging? Okay,
Yes.
okay, all right.
Our big influence and sway will be packed tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring lawn chairs. We'll get in.
The crafts room, I think they're puzzles. All kinds of things. Thank you all for hearing this.
And on your March meeting, you may have DCR as a presenter.
Well, we'll see about March or April. We haven't really had a chance to talk about this, but if it grows in terms of interest, we may push it off another month or something like
It
that.
might be a separate
Include people.
session.
But you're interested.
Yeah.
That's separate,
Yeah,
I'm interested personally.
so you can commit to getting them the information. so that
Certainly,
you
yeah.
can-
Well, I think if nothing else, we've started a dialogue here tonight and, and a commitment of intention. And I think that's a significant first step. So we'll be in touch, follow up about the DCR programming and we'll see where that goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
we're doing beach fees or,
We can't, yeah.
we can do this, this is quick, we can.
Yeah, if you, I mean, Tim isn't here tonight, and like I said, we don't start posting these fees until May, so it's, you know, up to you guys what you wanna do. We kind of looked at these numbers, the last couple of months, and so I'll leave this one up here for right now.
Do you mind if I would go?
Stand in front of the screen.
Yeah, I did some printouts too, if you guys wanna.
But yeah, you could hand one of those over there. Yeah. For 1 minute.
So this is just our stuff. I did pull out a couple of different surrounding towns.
Oh, thank you.
For the best that I could. We're in this like no man's land where people have either taken stuff off of their website or they're, you know, getting ready to change it.
Yeah, I
So-
couldn't find Harvard for the life of me.
Yeah, yeah. So on here, you know, we've got, Mirror Lake at Devon's, which I do believe is privately owned. Forge Ponds in Westford. Nara Park has 2 columns because there is a, price list for prior to June 30th, and a price list, for July 1st through the end of August. And then Centennial Beach at Hudson, Mass. So, one of the things I think is interesting, the only other place out of all of those that I could find information on rentals was, Devon's. So, and theirs is more than ours is, or sorry, ours is more than theirs is. We do about, it's $20. So, yeah, so that's just one interesting thing. We do parking, doesn't look like, at least I couldn't find any information on parking for other, locations. And it's just kind of random. Sometimes there's, you know, like Devon's has the season passes for, they've got a 4-person, 5-person, or 6 to 8-person option, or an individual. Then you have somewhere like Hudson where it's just going to be individually. So individually, you have to pay, you know, $50 if you're resident, $100 if you're non-resident, and senior for $25. So, our senior rate is lower than most places. Our out of town is 25, our in town is 15. So yeah, there's a lot of differences. In some places we're pretty right on with other folks, and in some other places, like ours, is definitely a lot more expensive. But it's kind of a different facility. I don't really put that in the same genre as ours, I guess you could say.
Lake quality is about the same.
That's a statement. So, yeah, so I don't know.
Okay, so there, we don't have a proposal for
Oh, what we would increase them to?
2025?
No, because we wanted to wait and see if this was something that we were going to include, for Clean Lakes. Is that something that you guys wanted? You were looking at a specific percentage? Because at the end of the day, like, and we know this just from previous experience, the more we play with these numbers, the more negative feedback that we get.
Yeah,
So
I don't want to hitch these numbers with any money that we potentially could give Clean Lakes. I think we looked other places. I mean, we operate at a loss. We operated at a loss last year.
yeah,
But did the number of people who had beach memberships or went to the beach during hours when we're open and we're paying attention, did those numbers go down compared?
so the bottom one, the yellow is 2024, the blue is 2023, and then the green is 2026. Sorry, 2022, got 2026 on the brain. So obviously coming out after COVID, everybody wanted to just be outside. So our numbers were definitely the highest in 22. We had a really rainy season in 23. And then last year, you know, the numbers were somewhat steady to what they were the previous year. So obviously the family households are the largest amount of memberships that we end up getting. And then these are split up just so you guys see the resident is going to be on the left-hand side, and then the non-resident is on the right-hand side there. So there's not a whole lot of difference between the non-resident and the residents as far as, you know, who is buying what. They all seem to be about pretty average. Other than that, like individual rate, I think we have a lot more, non-residents that come, but I shouldn't even use a lot. That's not a fair statement. There's more. There's more. It's not like 100 people more or anything. It's just.
So again, I mean, I guess the question, or just in terms of for the public, for people who are paying attention, are we anticipating that, I guess the next slide, or 2 slides from now,
This one.
that one.
Mhm.
Are we anticipating that these rates need to go up?
So Tim and I have talked about this quite a few times. I think we can make a little bit of change, but I don't think we should really be, going crazy one way or the other.
No, but I mean, again, I am not a huge fan of us planning for a loss.
I know,
So,
yeah.
you know, if we have a, an estimate of what our expenses are, what our wages are.
Moving on tests, I got. So at the meeting, I did an estimated budget for, and it is, unfortunately, it is a loss. But those are based off of numbers of what we've expended or made in the past. Tim is gonna work really, really hard to be able to cut down on the expenditures. But I do know that we have some. So one of the things I think I mentioned to Saul, Red Cross has changed the requirements. So we used to be able to use the CPR masks. They're called Seal Easies, which are circular. And they were easily interchangeable between adults or children. And now you're no longer allowed to use a Seal Easy on a child. You would have to get a child-size mask. So now we're gonna have to buy those as well as still having the Seal Easies and have to have the same amount. And obviously we have to use them for training too. So, because we do all of our training in-house. So, there's certain things like that, we weren't necessarily expecting that do pop up from time to time. And I think the previous year, we did have a new person, Rachel, in that role. So we did run fat a bit on the wages, just to be able to make sure that there was enough folks to be able there to support the operations and that there wasn't going to be any stress about, is there somebody that's going to be able to cover the snack shack? There's certain times where it's super slow. We could send people home. But we didn't necessarily do that because, we want to make sure that there was somebody there in that role. So I think that's another area where we can kind of cut back a bit is on scheduling, the folks that are there. And just to be clear, I'm not saying we would ever do that and like pull numbers back to an unsafe manner. That's not what I'm talking about. What I mean is like just coverage for recreation attendance and things like that. Yeah. So, that's kind of the estimate that we have off of previous budgets. But I agree with Saul, and this is something that, I said at the budget presentation is that, we're gonna have to go back through and relook at what those fees are gonna be, so that we can make sure that we cover all of those things. So the only 2 places that would come out negative are the special events, which should be a lot easier to tighten that up, and the beach. Those are the only 2 areas out of all.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's also the balance if we, I don't know, I don't know how elastic things are. If if you raised rates by 10%, do you lose
Right?
20% membership or 5% membership?
I was just thinking, when I was just kind of tallying up things, like for family, you'd rather not go up to 100, but go up 5 more, 95, because
Yeah.
once you get to 100, then it looks like it's,
It's a different number.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings in $3,000 more dollars. So
And I mean, it's interesting because, you know, Westford over at Forge Pond, you know, that's something, they only have $90 for non-residents, for 5 people.
They also
So-
don't have lifeguards.
Oh, they don't?
Yep.
I was not aware of that.
That's a big difference.
Okay.
Yep.
That is a
They have
big
some
difference.
beach attendants, but I don't believe they have lifeguards.
Interesting.
And Littleton residents still can go there.
Yeah.
With their.
Mhm.
And I don't, they were discussing their beach fees at their January meeting, but they're
Like
recording,
increasing them?
like charging residents for them.
Oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they don't currently.
They do not currently.
Yeah.
But that meeting has not been published yet, so
Okay.
I've not seen it.
And that's why I said we're kind of in that like
Yeah.
weird world right now where everyone's trying to figure out what those rates are gonna be for the Excuse me.
Yeah, and I would have said my gut instinct before looking at those numbers, residents, non-residents would be upcharge non-residents, but there's a bulk of people coming in there, so
Right.
do you dissuade those people from coming? Do we run at a loss because
And
of
do-
that?
It's a fine line. It really is.
There is a limitation apparently.
And that I haven't gotten an answer on yet, but yes,
Okay.
I do have an understanding that because we have accepted funds for Long Lake. So it's a great pond, which means it has to be open to the public. And I believe that there is only so much of a percentage that you can increase
Okay.
for resident versus non-resident, but I did not find an answer to that yet, so I'm still looking.
Who's the keeper of that information, the lawyer or town lawyer?
So I could definitely talk to them. So yes, that is a great place for me to use as a resource. I've been kind of looking online to see.
know.
So going through a
I
lot
know
of,
DCR, our agency bumped the out-of-state residents up.
Oh, really?
Tremendously right after COVID, but so we can set our own rates.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
in-state versus out-of-state versus,
Yeah, versus, yeah.
like we took funds from the state, I think is the.
Yeah.
Maybe we should take federal funds, you wouldn't be able to do it. I don't know, anyway. Not important at this point. Let's not go there.
so yes, I don't have an answer for that yet, but I.
All right,
am
so
looking.
we should make sure we're compliant with whatever that is, because it.
Yeah.
And that may really juggle things around because it seems like we may not be. At least based on a number I heard, but.
Yeah.
So if we had to lower non-resident rates or balance them somehow, that would
Worse.
cause more havoc with the
For sure, yeah.
rates. Okay. So I mean, it does sound like. We could be, I mean, maybe is it essentially a 5% give or take increase that we're planning for?
Typically, yes, we will do anywhere between, like 3 to 5%. Yeah, every year.
And I feel like we've held these rates for a couple of years now.
We have.
So,
Didn't we talk about at one point having voting on a percentage rate over X amount of years? Where we said we were going to do, a 2%, a 3%, a 4% kind
As
of.
like a base that we would.
What's that?
You saying that the commission was talking about, in essentially instilling a base percentage to be increased every year?
For a certain amount of years, yes. So like for 5
Kind of
years,
like what we did for the class and comp, grid to get to the $15 minimum wage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of, I know some, say Westford doesn't have lifeguards?
Yeah.
I wonder, right, that's the biggest expense or no?
I mean, wage definitely is, a pretty high expense.
Be curious, that's
Yeah.
that's not an easy decision to make, obviously. But I'm curious how many other towns offer
The
full-time, right?
liability of it just
Well,
makes me
no
like-
question, but the liability, right? If you walk up to Long Lake at whatever time the lifeguard leaves,
Yep,
right?
limit your own risk.
And and then the number of people who are using it goes. Well, some nights I would guess that the number of people, right, they wait for the lifeguard to leave and then they come. So, it'd be interesting to see how other towns manage that risk
Yeah,
when they don't have lifeguards. Right, you still have to have, for Camp T and things like that, like,
we have to
you have to have them
Yeah.
for that program, right?
Yeah.
But it's just something that, because if you run at a loss every year, then that's, and the other towns aren't doing that.
When we were able to offer swim lessons, was that at a loss or was that?
Yeah, that was, because that even, so you would have to take a lifeguard and then give them an extra training, which is a water safety instructor. So now you have somebody that has to maintain their lifeguard cert and their WSI cert. And so we're paying for those 2 certifications, and there wasn't a whole lot of people that actually want to do that. And the requests for swim lessons just kind of have gone down. I mean, parents and kids want it, they want to learn in a pool. They don't really have an interest in learning in the lake.
Barely deep enough anymore.
So I just wanted, in light of Norm's question, Alicia, you might remember, I know you're not feeling well that day.
Yeah.
But I clarified and just want to make sure Norm understands that Camp T already has within their expenses the lifeguards associated with the Camp T program participants, such that the lifeguards under the beach operation expenses are completely separate. So removing those beach operation lifeguards would have no impact with regard to the liability associated with your Camp T. Just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Well, you legally have to have them for Camp T.
I'm not suggesting, I just,
We have them
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
And they're paid through Camp T, so
Yeah.
that's.
just when I look at the
I know.
expense line, that's.
And I don't know, I mean, it would be interesting. I'm pretty sure NARA does.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Because even like the tiki bar has lifeguards, so I'm kind of surprised that
It's,
Wachusett
yeah,
does not, or
or
not
Westford.
Wachusett, Westford.
right. Yeah, I mean, the tiki bar, there's a lot of unsupervised kids.
Well,
And alcohol.
It's
And alcohol.
water to swim in.
There is, yeah. Although it's like, yeah, anyway. Okay, so I mean, it sounds like in terms of the base operations, 5% increases what you should
we
be
get to
bringing
look at
us
it and,
roughly.
yeah,
That ends up being, yeah. The other things, so you have the rental sort of activity.
Yeah.
I know this was brought up in the letter. Does it
does it make sense to think about lowering the rent? Yeah, because my sense is that there is 218 hours out of however many hours in the summer is not a whole lot.
Yeah.
I was thinking that for.
10 canoes and kayaks or whatever is out
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to try lowering those rates and just see if we can, I'd rather see every kayak and canoe on the water, 8 hours a day than having them sit there all day.
And to your point, that in your letter, and we talked about this as having an annual membership where people pay up front and maybe not come that much.
That's right. That's another program too. That I think that's something I think if we can, there's a little bit of logistics involved there, but I think that's certainly other than setting up a line item and figuring out how to check in and out.
Yeah.
Right.
That's something that and that's kind of the season pass model. For whatever silly reason that I'm guilty of it 100%, that I would rather pay 5 times as much for a season pass than pay for 1 hour.
Because the flexibility, being able to go anytime you want.
Even if I only use it twice.
It's just the administration that then becomes in that expense line, that's the only thing.
Right.
But you've got people in the snack shack, you've got people doing
Yeah.
rentals already, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
should be.
And camp does use at least the oldest group, the Tigers, they do use the canoes and kayaks and stuff.
Okay.
When they're there during that time frame. So
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that, and then we have to clarify to whoever's getting a membership today, it's as available and they'll be reserved for programs at certain times and.
Right. Yeah. First come, first serve, even though you have a membership.
Yep. First come, first served behind any organized programming.
Right.
Yeah.
But yes, I think, a hard look at, maybe we try for a year. What is the rate now? It's 20 an hour? Try. It's,
75.
So I will
75
say,
bucks.
for a season?
I will say, one place I could find information about renting anything online was Wellesley. Lo and behold.
Okay.
And they rent a 1-person kayak, this is what was published anyways on their website. For 30 minutes, $5.
Okay.
2-person kayak, 30 minutes, $10. Stand-up paddleboard, 30 minutes, $10. And they say clearly on their website, limited inventory first
Yeah.
come, first serve,
Yeah.
no reservations. And then, because again, it was really hard to find anything. I looked at Neshoba Paddler, because I'm like, hey, that's nearby.
Yeah.
Right.
They have a season pass as well, but they do either 2 hours or 2+ hours. Canoe for 2 hours, it's $42. And then 2+ hours, $63. Solo kayak, $34. And then $50 for the 2+ hours. Canoe. They had like the giant canoe, which who knows how big the giant canoe is versus the
I'm
canoe.
like, I don't know how I feel about that.
The giant canoe was $68 for 2 hours and $99 for 2+ hours. And their stand-up paddle boards were $40 for 2 hours, $60 for 2+, and double kayak, $44, and then my number must have dropped off, 60 maybe.
What was the yearly membership? You still.
I didn't write that down. I don't think I clicked. And then Maynard also had it. It was sit-on kayaks. And it's $25 for 2 hours. And it said on their website, 60% of the profit goes to Maynard Conservation Fund.
Cool.
So something like that could be written in
Yeah.
as this goes to Clean Lakes for Littleton,
Yeah.
make it clear.
Yeah. So,
You're doing a good thing. You're not only getting exercise, you're helping the lake.
just as a similar, a paddling membership at community boating in Boston is $275.
That's for sailing,
No, that's paddling,
paddling, okay,
paddle boards and kayaks.
gotcha.
Yeah, in Concord, I even looked up Southbridge Boathouse. They have weekday and weekend rates, and it's not much. It was for a single kayak, I have it at $16 an hour weekday, weekend $17 an hour. And then
One extra dollar, man.
What?
That one extra dollar.
it's the same thing for the double kayak. It's $17 an hour for the weekday and then $18 an hour for the weekend. So those were the only
Rental
rates
stuff you could find.
I could find.
Okay,
Granted, I didn't spend all day, but
thank you.
But yeah, I mean, maybe do we look at hourly rate at, I don't know, 10 or 15?
So, yeah,
And I would say an hourly rate of 10 or 15 and then yeah, was 75 sounds reasonable, especially if it's 15, it's kind of 5 days.
yeah. I think, like, I know one of the things that I feel like Tim has mentioned before in the past is, he did not want to lower the, like, 30-minute one, because you have people like in the boat, flipping the boat, so we have to go out and rescue them and then bring them back in, and it's like.
That should be
Yeah,
the more,
that's your
yeah.
30 minutes, right? So maybe we don't do half hour
Yeah.
anymore.
I was gonna say, yeah, maybe we,
if that's the case, yeah.
yeah, just do, I mean, honestly, a half hour rental is silly, like you can barely get off the beach and. Especially where you're learning.
Depends on your skill.
Yeah, I mean, I can go down like in half an hour, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lower the hourly rate and get rid of the half hourly rate. That,
It's easier to manage.
yeah, easier to manage.
And then add a membership.
I put that on.
And we generally don't, I guess. I know I have rented a sail boat, so
You
That's-
have
I might be I
experience,
would be the only person who's rented. a sail
might be the
boat.
only person.
Really?
Well, we talked about,
Look, I would rent a sail. I'd rent,
it's not that. There's other people that have wanted to rent them. It's do you have the experience to be able to do it? So, I mean, Saul is well experienced with sailing.
That was actually before I was connected, so it was
Yeah.
before I was connected to the program.
Perks.
So usually what we've done in the past is, the kids that have gone through our programs, if they want to rent a boat and like take their parents out, then we'll let them do that. But we don't open it to the general public because you do have to actually have a skill set to be able to sail, a sailboat correctly and safely. So, yeah, we're not comfortable with saying like, hey, anybody, you can come on in and get a sailboat, because that would not go over well.
No, and I mean, most places that do that you have to do a checkout session.
Yeah. And we did talk about that, but yes, it does end up taking a lot of time to go through and check that, everybody knows
How to rig the boat.
how
How to rig it, how to unrig it,
How to
put
land
it
it,
away.
how to come back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without breaking too many things. So,
a lot.
Swim it in.
How to rescue yourself.
Where the obstacles are.
Yeah.
All right. Any other, I know one request from another resident was the canoe and kayak storage. Don't know if we have made any.
If I can chime in,
Yeah.
I did find Harvard does a lottery for canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddle boards, and you get an assigned spot. So it's a lottery and you get an assigned spot, and basically
For
if
the
it's
season?
abandoned. Or what?
For the, so like, let's say Saul wins it for the season, so.
Yeah,
He can put his stand-up paddleboard in the specific location.
you'd have a specific spot, yeah.
I can speak to the Harvard Pond.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That is a mess. With
okay, there you go.
the racks, number one, the upkeep of the racks,
Yeah,
and the lottery are a mess. So I would be against unless we found a good solution and a good place for it, I would be totally against the boat racks. And from the many meetings with the folks who are around the beach, I'm guessing that they would think it's not aesthetically pleasing to have the boat racks with all the boats, and the residents have to lock them up, and they try to fine people for not taking their boat off the rack, and it's a lot of work. And that's it.
first-hand experience, for sure.
That sounds like a nightmare.
I think it's worth continuing to explore. Racks in the right place and those things are certainly, things that have to be addressed, but
Yeah.
I know that there are lots of people in town who have kayaks at home that probably would bring them down to the lake or have them at the lake if they.
Yeah.
Because they're not using them anywhere else, or.
We want ours, that one. We got a little thing with
You
wheels.
live right there.
Well, I live not that far, not that close. It's probably
Right.
like, I don't know.
Yes, but you live in a place you can walk it down.
That's fair.
Right. I cannot walk my kayak to the lake.
That's fair. Yeah.
But again, I think if maybe we can alleviate some of that by making the rentals more appealing.
And
That would make sense.
interesting idea, yeah.
So.
Okay. Totally noted.
All right.
And also, clearly, I don't know. Guilty of not having looked at our own website as closely as the other towns. If it's clearly displayed how easy like what's the process, and sell it as it's, user friendly to rent, and
Yeah.
okay, come on
Yeah, we can
down.
look at it a little bit more.
Service will send it on your way.
Do we need to vote on the hours tonight, or do we wait till when we do the rates?
Wait, yeah, if you want to.
So there were in Rob's letter, there were a couple other things. I think the sort of activity nights.
Yeah, but I'll try to be real brief because I put it in the letter, but I feel like there's this concept that people come to the beach to avoid, after 5, to avoid the beach pass. I think it's, from people that I talk with, it's as much to do with, we're working. We just got off. And quite frankly, the way the summers have heated up, the after 5 o'clock to 7:30 is some of the most prime time that exists. So I wanted to add that into the comments I wrote to you about, because I think there's really an opportunity, given your discussion already, to reduce the rental rate or to go into its season pass with regard to utilizing the equipment. To be able to, right now, everything's shut down at 5 o'clock with regard to those items. If we could get into that creative concept of the senior tax people to lengthen your hours, combined with I believe you guys sound like you're gonna cut down the rates on the rentals. I think you could really have something to market with regard to come down to the beach. It's available, and like you can use it, etc. And you're making it viable to bring more people to enjoy Long Lake Beach and the operation. And I just wanted to express that I agree. I'm sure there are some people that are saying, I'm not going to pay for it, I'll get it for free. But I also know that there are a number of people that they're there with their kids because that's as early as they can get there.
So we have had conversations in the past of extending hours. We have not received very good feedback, for extending those hours. And typically, if you, again, go through the hours on all the other locations, they operate in the same time frame as well. You know, we're not gonna operate and have lifeguards there as it starts getting dark. That just doesn't make any sense, you know?
No, but and going back to how do you deal with the liability of not having lifeguards there? Does it make sense to have, the snack shack and rentals open until 7 or 7:30? It's light until almost 9,
Yeah.
the rest of the summer. Yeah.
I don't know that the revenue would justify the expense of staff.
Right.
That's the question, right? Do you get enough revenue for having people there for another couple hours?
Which brings in Rob's question about the senior tax work off, but I don't know what type of rate
For
they would have
rentals,
to be.
I would not feel comfortable with
Mhm.
having a senior trying to pick up and move canoes and things like that. It's, there's some that are definitely able, but, I feel like in general, most of the individuals that sign up for that tend to want to do like administrative work. They're not looking to pick up canoes and life jackets and stuff like that.
Maybe a snack shack.
Maybe, yeah.
But what type of? So it's senior tax work off, but we'd have to pay them, right?
No, so the way that it works is, they will work hours and they keep track of what those hours are. And then we sign off on it, and then that goes to, Elder and Human Services. And they will look at the amount of hours that they worked, and then they take off of their taxes. So it's like they're working in lieu of, paying some tax.
So.
Yeah.
If I could, I may be wrong. I don't think I knew Rachel's name at the time when I was asking her the question, but I now believe it was Rachel as my source. My understanding from asking her a question many months ago was that with regard to rental, there is no aspect of lifeguard monitoring, if you will. In other words, there's nobody with binoculars looking out as you're renting. After 5 o'clock with regard to the senior, sort of thing, there's no risk element with regard to before 5 o'clock, the lifeguards are, I just want to make that.
No, it wasn't
separate.
it was more if we're staffing the beach in some fashion, snack shack rentals, etc., are we comfortable not having lifeguards on duty?
And I'm just trying to say.
Yeah, they're separate. They're
correct, as I heard that.
kind of separate, but not entirely.
So not entirely, because if wind picks up and people are not experienced paddlers, they're gonna end up on the other side of the lake, and we've had to rescue our fair few of folks that get stuck.
I was just trying to speak to the lifeguard.
Yeah, no, it's
And our lifeguards they will end up going out and paddling to get those people, even though it's not their responsibility. We're not gonna just leave people up there on the lake overnight, so yes, they do.
Walk back from anywhere you land.
Yeah, so there's a difference between, is that their responsibility is to rescue anyone past the swim box? No, it's not, but, they have and will and continue to do so.
No,
I've done it myself.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm less concerned about that than just the decision of, if we're there and open for business,
Right.
are we comfortable with being open for business and not having lifeguards? That's
I'm not, I will tell you.
Yeah, there's the optics of,
That's
the
me.
person would be able to give care.
Yeah, or just you're inviting people to come down and use the facility. Now, obviously, I think places do it. There are places
Yeah.
that have swim beaches and staff them and have snack shacks and don't have lifeguards.
Yeah.
But that, I think that might not even be our. Maybe we can make a direction. I think I might want to have some input from select board or town council. Or, what is the
Well, I
level of service that we want to.
I think
maintain
the, so level of service is one component and the other is liability with,
Yeah.
our insurance company. What would they?
Right.
Like, if we don't do it, does that mean our insurance goes up?
Yeah.
Right.
Like the place that rents on the Concord, on the Sudbury River in Concord, right?
Yeah.
Granted, it's a business.
Yep.
Yeah,
You walk up, you pay your rental fee and you paddle off and there's no.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
right.
So how is that?
But I think there's
But does
gotta
it-
be more to it than that. I mean, just.
But there's no
Right.
there's no swim beach there. You're
There's
not-
no swim
Right.
beach, right?
You're not
So it's
inviting
different,
people to
right?
swim.
So it's different. So it's
Yeah.
almost like, how do you partition it off if it's
Right.
after hours, right?
Yeah.
How do you partition it off?
And to your point about optics, if a family arrives with their little kids, they might say, snack shack's open.
Yeah.
So there must be a lifeguard somewhere, just miss that,
Right.
which
Yeah.
would be a horrible if something happened.
But we do post signs that say when lifeguards are off duty, and it does say lifeguards off duty, swim at your own risk. So it is.
Yeah.
Emblazoned out there.
Right, well, so I would say let's take a look at. What it would take to. Staffing wise to keep rentals open
Yeah.
and staffing and liability wise. To keep rentals open later, snack shack open later. It'd be nice, I mean, honestly, with all the people there. It'd be nice to have the bathrooms open later.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, we do put it for you.
I know,
I know
but-
nobody loves to pour out, but, we are thinking
Right.
of them.
Yeah, you're not completely.
Yeah.
Not alone, but, okay. And maybe, I think maybe the other opportunity is we don't do it 5 nights a week. You can try it out and see. Yeah. 2 nights a week or something to.
I do like Thursday night. Although then it competes with if we're
Or
doing
not
Thursday.
Tuesday night, Wednesday night, I don't know, Wednesday night is always the sailboat racing night, yeah,
All right.
bring the dirigible truck.
Talk about liability.
Like, yeah, there we go. We just talked about liability.
All right,
All right, speaking of seasonal employees, so we are gonna go ahead and post, but we always run this by and get you guys to vote, to approve it. But yeah, these are the positions that we have open this summer. So we'll post those and start taking in applicants. We've already sent out the, letters for intent to return, and any responses we get to those, we'll send out an offer letter, to kind of lock those folks in. We're lucky and we usually, like, come from Micah, we usually get a lot of returners, probably about especially with camp, somewhere around 90% return. Yeah, we, will post it, start getting applications and start interviewing people. So we're ready to go with a full force for the summer. Yep.
Thank you all.
take care.
Thank you.
So do we need to make a motion that you can post this?
Yes.
All right, I'll make a motion that we post our seasonal employment for May through August 2025.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded, Kevin,
Yes.
Norm,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
The next posting. I don't know why, like, working. The program coordinator, as we saw, Mr. Kaz this evening. We would like to open the posting for that position. We are going to post internally, so we would do that for 1 week. If for some reason that doesn't work out, then we would come back and do the full process with the selection committee and do an open, that's what we're looking for, non-internal. The opposite of internal. Yeah,
So we should expect to be back with another position next month.
I hope not. Yeah, we shall see, we shall see.
All right, we have to vote on this too.
Yes, please.
All right, I make a motion that we post the program coordinator position internally for a week.
Second.
Good job, Norm.
Somebody did.
Get in there.
Yeah. Here.
All right,
Right,
roll call vote. Kevin,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Norm.
Yeah, I mean, yes, thank you.
magic.
All right.
It's a big X on my screen and I don't know why, but it came up, so we'll take that.
Doesn't like the pictures, apparently.
What's that?
It doesn't like the pictures.
It does not like the pictures. Now, why did it go back to this? There we go. Okay. I don't have a whole lot with the project updates. They did actually start doing the drywall inside the building. I would say probably this was 2 weeks ago, so they probably have a majority of it up at this point. I'm working with the architect on fireplace finishes. Replacing the stove that was in there before. There's going to be an EV charger for the truck. So we won't have to actually use the charge point, which will be nice because then we're only paying electrical fees, which is excellent. And then the theater projector, that's already, it's done. That was something that for some reason did not make it in the scope of work. I don't know why, because we talked about it a lot.
Is that in the auditorium or in the?
We got a grant from Light and Water a couple of years ago for a 3D projector for like games and stuff like that. We currently have it at 41, but we did want to be able to install it on the stage and be able, because you can actually make it like 10 foot or like 20 feet. So, you know, more people can interact with it. So that is going to be moved and installed. But an actual like projector to do movies or presentations at this point. We have a really amazing projector, which we got with that whole outdoor cinema, the inflatable movie screen. So, you know, if we have to put it on a cart and plug it in and, you know, kind of go old school, then so be it. But yeah, so I know that one's off the books, but yeah, we're still looking at June 23rd as the completion date. So today we started talking about moving again. So I think there's someone coming in to do a walkthrough with me just to look at all of our stuff. We have a lot of stuff.
All your stuff in your current.
Yeah, like it's what we would be moving from town hall over to 36. Yeah. We have a lot of stuff.
Where's the fireplace?
The fireplace is right over here. Can't, Kevin's in front of it on my screen. So if you look at the top photo, thank you, I appreciate that, Judy. So it is not a working fireplace. Sadly, we were very excited about the possibility of maybe, because there's a bread oven too. So we were like, we can do pizza, we can do classes and teach people how to make bread. This would be amazing. It doesn't work. So
Sad days.
Sad days, sad days,
I was gonna say, we could move our meetings there in front of the fire.
right? Well, in the future, we may be able to move it there, we shall see.
Air flames.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Well, we've
flames.
talked about like, how could we mimic it and make it kind of look like, you know.
It's rotating
without-
tinfoil things with the lights.
Yeah. We'll do an arts and crafts project. Yeah, that'd be great. So anyway, so there we are. That's our update. We don't really, I don't have anything for the tennis court. We're moving along. We did have an email. I need to check that because it looks like they need the approval from the landowner. So we'll get that figured out and completed. But so far, I think everything's still on task for that, which is pretty awesome. We had our Ties and Tiaras dance on Saturday. It was fantastic and lovely. So thanks to all the families that came out. It's really sweet to see like whole families, like everybody come out and yeah, it's just it's been a really lovely experience. And our previous DJ was booked, so we ended up getting Ooch, which was awesome. Ooch is also a DJ, if you did not know.
Did not know.
So he did a great job. It was great to see him. So yeah, Ties Terrace done.
Cool.
Moving on. Finance report. So right now in January, we almost had 300,000 come in, just under, which is unheard of. We've not had that. So I think people are really starting to realize those spaces in camp are limited and, you know, signing up for stuff earlier. But, you know, that money, we talk about that on the budget level, and I think, you know, it comes up with like, oh, you guys have so much money in there. Oh my God. But all of that money is already booked for the next fiscal year to pay for the staffs, for the field trips, for the buses, all of those things. So, yeah, so this is the lowest that we get. So 31, it's pretty good for this being the lowest of our our year or our months, so to speak. So yeah, we'll start seeing the revenue in tick back up, and yeah, it's looking pretty good. All right, I did put these up. We don't really have to go through them if you don't want to, but this was something that I presented at the budget hearing, just to kind of go through what our estimated revolving budget looks like. That was something the select board had asked to see. So, you know, we broke it down into the different program areas, and I guess I would say the net recreation stuff is more of indirect costs. I mean, some of them are direct, but you know, so, you know, overall, we would have a negative. It won't be, right? When we had the zero budgeted, before we actually had the additional amount that was added on from the office coordinator, we were able to cover some of it, but it would drop us down to like 30. So we'll have to, this is what I talked about earlier about going back and looking at those fees. So we're gonna have to increase so that we're either gonna have to cut expenses or wages somehow, and or increase the prices for programs fall on. So yeah.
Or it'll be a beautiful summer with no rain.
That would be
Cover.
lovely. That would be really, really lovely. Yeah.
Lots of boat rentals.
Lots of boat rentals, yeah. And this will be Rachel's second year here, so, you know, she can run that ship a bit tighter than we have in the past, so. You know, we're hoping that she'll be able to drop that wage down at the beach bit.
And just going back to the beach financial information.
Yeah.
Programming is sailing camp, fishing camp,
Yeah, I'll go back to the.
yoga, and I mean, yoga's nothing. I mean, not nothing, but it's,
There's one more. Yeah, so our programs, yes, you're right, so.
that's fine, that's,
Yeah.
whatever, that's.
Essentially, the programs would be sailing, fishing, and yoga,
So, I mean, sailing is, I think,
the biggest one.
the biggest by far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully, I mean, fishing for it being its first year did pretty well, so, I mean, we're really hopeful that that program will just get stronger and, keep
Were
going.
you at capacity? Do you need other additional?
We weren't at
Okay.
capacity, but we definitely, for it being a very, very first year doing a program, there was a fair amount of people, and fair amount of returner kids that came back too, which is a good sign, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really great program. Yep. Okay. Let's see. I think that we'll go here, see if I can do this in a more efficient manner. There's the budget. No. Okay, we're at that time. So, new business. Nada.
Good.
Okay. Public input.
We left.
Everyone gave their public.
Yes.
input.
Okay. Old business, we got nothing. Come on. And then these were some pictures from the dance.
Okay.
Gave away the giant teddy bear.
bear.
Yep. Lucy is one of the kids that does like all of our programs, so see, she got it. It's really excited.
Thanks.
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting today on February 10th.
Second.
Kevin,
Yes.
Norm,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and I am a yes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good night.